The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
All right, everybody, it's your host, Zach Mullins, for the Grip Show. And today joining me is going to be Jason Otto. And Jason is a longtime member of the Charlotte Pickup Artists. Jason, what year did the Charlotte Pickup Artists originate, or what's the backstory on that? Do you know?
So we actually started in 2013. It's a funny story. I actually hooked up with James Rederitis back in 2008. We were at an event somewhere in Charlotte where we met up. It was this bar, and it was an ad in the newspaper said arm wrestling tournament. And I was down here for 2 years. I didn't know anybody in the strength world. So I said, oh, that's cool. I'll go to this tournament that they're having. So I go to this tournament, and a bunch of guys. James was there, who, by the way, I met in 2001 in Staten Island, New York. Hadn't seen him since then, so it was really cool to see him. And a bunch of other guys from the local area were there, and we turned it into this giant practice. So I kind of hooked up with James and his crew at the time. We arm wrestled every Saturday for like 6 hours of Saturday, like for years. Then in 2012, everybody started to kind of go their own way. We were getting out of arm wrestling a bit more, and we started to get into grip more because we met Bob Sundin earlier. It was probably 2010 where we met him. So we hooked up with him again, and he said, well, why don't you guys come on out to my place? Because, that's where he always trained in his backyard. So we started going there, and I'll never forget the day because it was 2013, but it was the day that my daughter was born, because I'm on my way to the practice, and my wife had been trying to call me, and my phone was not, I wasn't answering the phone. I didn't hear it or didn't feel the vibrate or whatever. And I'm pulling up to Bob's place, and I finally get the phone call that my wife was in labor. So I was like, I had to quickly text James, and I was like, listen, I can't make it. I'm about to have a baby and whatnot. But that was actually the legitimate first practice we ever had, was 2013. It started out with me, James, Bob, and Robert Miller. We were the original pickup artists,
Okay.
We didn't call ourselves that at the time. What's that?
Yeah. I was going to say, who came up with the pickup artist name, the Charlotte Pickup Artists? You remember who came up with that name for you guys?
Probably James. I don't really remember, but I think it was probably James. He had this, it was probably the year after that, 2014, we were doing a charity event at some place that was opening south of here in North Carolina. And there was a newspaper reporter there to kind of cover the event and cover the strength. And he interviewed all of us, and we were all in the paper for it or whatever. And that's when he put Charlotte Pickup Artists put strength on display. Like, that was the headline of the.
Okay.
So I actually have that hanging up in my garage right now, but that's when it kind of stuck. It was, it was, I don't know. It was a play on words at first, but then it was like, well, now it's kind of started to become our identity. So it's kind of cool. But that was 10 years ago.
I was going to say, so you guys have been running competitions on and off, or regularly since then, correct?
Well, we started running competitions in, I guess, our 2018 was really our first grip competition.
Okay.
Prior to that, James had hosted, arm wrestling competitions, and we held some local arm wrestling competitions, but our first grip competition was 2018.
Okay, now we're getting ready to do the AGP 5 recap. Is that competition the first AGP that you're speaking of? Is that the first grip competition?
So, yeah, exactly. But at the time, it was in 2018. We did it as we were kind of trying to put together just kind of a fun grip event. We didn't get it sanctioned or anything. We just want to see what kind of traction we could get, and we had a lot of fun with it. So we did this event in 2018, had a lot of folks come out, and then decided the following year we need to do this again, but we need to do it something nobody else has ever done. So what we did was we started thinking, well, what if we do, and I don't know if anybody's ever been near our group, our core people. We come up with crazy ideas and we have crazy conversations constantly, and it's a riot. But this particular one, we came up with, let's have arm wrestling there and grip. That'll be cool. What if we have Gary get up there and bend some steel or some horseshoes or frying pans or something? Okay, that's cool. What about strong or some Highland Games stuff? If we throw weights and get a caber, and then somebody was like, well, that's cool. I have a Atlas stone. Let's bring the Atlas, or not Atlas. Well, yeah. Well, we had Atlas stones. We had several of those, but we also had the Husafel stone. The big. Mm-hmm. So before you knew it, we had this ridiculous number of events, and we were like, this is crazy. This is nuts, right? But we started putting it out there. And then the name, James, again, James is a wordsmith. He comes up with these names, really. Mm-hmm. And he came up, I think he started, and we started playing with all the words, and it came out to be Arm Highland Grip Strong Wrestling Power Games. Yep. And it was just to take everything that we are going to put in this first competition, and we're just going to put it all in the title, and it'll be nuts and crazy. But then AGP for short is kind of cool, and that's kind of like, mm-hmm. It's really the AGP because it evolved from that. We actually started that event. We had, I remember talking about it because we were laughing because we're like, oh, it's just going to be the 6 or 7 of it, whatever it was. Because at that point, our grip team grew from the 4 original members to about 7 of us, I want to say. Gary Stewart came along. So it was me, Bob, Robert, and James. And then Scott Johnson and Gary Stewart came along. Pork Chop came along thereafter. And then we've got Cody and Vinny who are with us now, mm-hmm. and Mike Bianchi. We're kind of all now, but it's evolved since. And that following that, so that particular year, we had all those events. It took all day because we had all these things going on at the same time. And we ended up having like 25 people at the event, which was crazy because we were expecting.
That's a great turnout. I mean,
it was great because everything that we had in the event, it drew people from those backgrounds. So we had Highland Games there. We had professional wrestlers, like indie professional wrestlers there. We had strongmen. We had somebody from every one of those backgrounds there, which was awesome because, grip is in everything. So especially in those specific sports, the women, we had a lot of women turn out to that one who were really strong. That was the only time we had women enter the contest, but we had a lot of women enter the contest. Mm-hmm. And the records that they set that day are very impressive. Like one of these days I got to post the records for our event on the grip mm-hmm. board because some of those records are pretty stout.
For sure. So over the years, like I said, did you kind of whittle it down into basically being, instead of this crazy thing that's bringing everything that you're kind of like, okay, we kind of have a more stable core set of events and we kind of, stick to more traditional grip stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So it went from all of those events to, okay, let's just do 5 events. You can pick 3 to compete at, and then a medley. So we always had we always go overboard with things. So we were like, let's just do a 10-minute medley where we just throw all kinds of things. And by the end of it, people are passing out or whatever. Which was awesome. Like the medley, you would seriously love it. But for that particular one, or the following year, we did it that way, where it was a medley, and then you could pick 3 out of the 5 events. And we actually did that 2 years in a row like that.
Okay.
And then I think that took us to around COVID. So we didn't really have a lot of people other than our guys there and a couple others from. Mm-hmm. a couple other guys showed up. But then it's evolved even from there to now it's just 5 events. You can do all 5, or you can do however many you want. But we count your top 3 lifts out of the 5 for the overall. And that seems to be a good place. But what I think we may go back to next year is pick 3, or we may just do 3 events.
Yeah.
And a medley again, because the medley was a really big deal. Then because you start to see the guys who are really well-rounded. Robert Miller is like,
oh yeah,
he is very strong at medleys because every event he's solid at. Like there's nothing that he's like, he's not just got one thing in his wheelhouse. He's got lots of things in his wheelhouse. And medleys are kind of cool because you have so many different options.
Well, you don't see them contested as much anymore.
No, you don't.
So a lot of those old school grip competitions, you see the medleys at nationals and different things, and it's and like I said, there was a medley at this year's nationals, so it was like a 15 type deal, and it was one of those things where like you pick your own item and you have to lift your own item in order to try everybody else's stuff. So you can't throw in outrageous stuff in the medley if you can't lift it, Right. But yeah, those like really, bigger medleys and stuff, you just don't see them as much. So I would, I think it'd be awesome if you guys would bring that back kind of, and just keep that traditional stuff. I like seeing the older school implements, and we're going to get into that with the AGP 5, where you guys are hosting stuff like the 1-hand Euro pinch, or the solid V bar, the 2-inch, solid V bar as a carabiner style connection. So a lot more traditional events and stuff like that.
I'm glad you said that, because I did fail to mention that. That was also part of our goal. What was happening is there are so many grip implements out there nowadays and it's great. Like just tons of implements, and people are getting strong in different ways, and different competitions are holding these new implements, but you're not seeing the old implements being contested anymore. So our thing was, we're going to pick a core. So like we'll always have grippers, and I know there are people hate grippers, but it to me, it's one of the classics that's always been in the competition. The V bar, we don't hold it every year, but when we do, that to me is a classic. You got the Crusher is a pretty classic event, and a lot of the thick bar stuff is transferable to Crusher because the diameter is the same. Now the texture, of course, is going to be different. The Euro, we always have a Euro event, whether it's 1 or 2 hand. We usually flip flop them. We do 2 hand 1 year and go back and forth. And then the big one is the lever top. And I always email David Horn before and after the event, just saying, we really appreciate these implements that you've created, because they've become pretty popular, and they're kind of staples for our event. But we originally held the lever top. So James, that was really in his wheelhouse back in 2019. And I remember saying that might have been actually how the official event really got off the ground, was we got to get it sanctioned, and we have to have lever top, because that's the only way he'll have the record. They didn't ever, I think until that point, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was held in the U.S., but maybe it might have been held maybe once before we did. It was always held overseas.
I would know that. Yeah, that would have been before I was even in grip. But that event probably hasn't been contested much in general.
Well, it has a ton in our event, because we do it every year. Yeah. But prior to that, you didn't see it except for a couple times. So we started doing that. He broke the record, and that was really a cool experience, because it was a record that David Horn just owned it. And I remember telling David, and he was super congratulatory of James and whatever, because he knew how hard James was working for it and whatnot. So that was cool.
Yeah, and James has been brought up in several episodes. I intend on interviewing James at some point. Like I said, I just have to get through all the guests at some point. But And James actually hosted the first grip competition I ever went to, so that's a topic that I can talk with him about when in the future whenever I get to interview him and stuff. So I mean, James competition is where I got my start at, and for these 5 AGP competitions that you guys have held, I've been to the last 2 of them and enjoyed myself being there. And with you guys being in Charlotte about 2 hours down the road from me, like I said, I just wanted to cover the event, cover these events that I'm at, and just bring more attention to the sport and the stuff that's kind of coming up with, and just the people that are involved in it, and give them credit. So
sure.
if we get into this AGP 5, right? Yeah. The event lineup was 30 millimeter grippers. So that's a 30 millimeter block set with the grippers.
Yep.
A 2-inch V-bar, and that is a solid 1 pipe V-bar. That's the Fat Bastard Barbell Company V-bar, which, like you said, event. And then the 2.5-inch crusher, the 1-hand Euro pinch, and then we had the lever top. So that was the 5-event lineup. And you've already kind of mentioned how the athletes signing up can do all 5 if they want, or they could select 3 events of that mix, and then you kind of get scored off of how you do in your 3 events. But it gives us kind of a better option for the lifter, as opposed to this is the lineup, you have to do it. I mean, you can kind of pick your events, or it's different than what most promoters do for an event, but there's a lot of freedom. Like, these things will still go on the sanctioning lists and be in the leaderboards and all that stuff. But as far as the promoter, you have the freedom to kind of decide how you score your own event within your own realm, I guess. So I think it's cool that you guys have a little bit of a different twist on that, and something that you've done. So if you want to just kind of dive in on it, the first event was the 30 millimeter grippers. And we had a tie in that event. And I don't know, do you have the stats with you, Jason, by chance? Okay.
I got them. Yeah, I have them right in front of me.
Okay.
We did. Yeah.
But yeah,
so
I mean, you can give a rundown on that if you'd like, and kind of just let us know how that kind of went.
Yeah. So for 30 millimeter, and we've always done 20 millimeter grippers. This was the first year we actually went to 30, again, because I believe it was only contested in New Jersey back in it was a few years ago now, but Nate Browse held that event up in Jersey. It was the I forgot what SJ4 or
I've heard the name.
Yeah, we were there. We were there for it. It was an awesome event, but it was 30 millimeters, and it's really different doing a 30 millimeter gripper, I feel like, than a 20 millimeter gripper. Of course, I've been that's back when I was really training grippers, and then I got out of it for a while, so I'm trying to get back into it. But man, it's hard to get back into it. Anyways, so grippers, we did have a tie for the top. It was funny because we had Vinny Reveles, who came down from New York, who's a gripper guy, and I think the draw for him is grippers. You don't see it contested much anywhere. True. I think there's 2 draws. One is the gripper, and the other is the fact that there's 5 events. It makes your drive really worth it when you can have 5 events that you're contesting. So Vinny, and I'm trying to remember what he was like, 80, was he 84 kilogram or
probably 83 or whatever,
80s, whatever that one is.
83 class. Yeah.
83. And so he ended up taking first because of his body weight, but he took 160, RGC 160, and all of our grippers that we use are Iron Mind, GHP, or Tedding, and they're all Canon rated. So we try to stick with those 3. I feel like their widths are the most similar, their crushes the most similar. I don't like getting into the real narrow grippers.
No, yeah, and I think that's the best move, and that's what most people, I think, if you're hosting grippers in a competition, you kind of have to stick with those, I guess, trusted brands, or those kind of, the tried and true grippers. Yeah. You don't want to be just throwing random stuff in there and whatever. Right. So, those are good grippers.
Yeah, and real quick, at the beginning of the event, I wrote about it on the grip board, but me and James were just hanging out, waiting, because we had set up everything, and we were there. We still had an hour and a half or whatever, and drinking our coffee and shooting the shit or whatever. And then Vinny shows up because he was staying in a hotel nearby, and he showed up walks over to the grippers. Like, oh, he's like, where are the grippers? He went over and he just took the 156 and closed it. Didn't touch any of the other grippers. And then he went and grabbed the 160 and closed. And I was like, you're nuts. You are nuts. You're not even warming up. My knuckles would be cracking if I was trying that right now. But anyways, he was just so excited he couldn't help it. So he took first because of his body weight with 160. But Pork Chop, who had been sandbagging, he's been squeezing, like having trouble squeezing a 141 or a 143 lately with a 30 millimeter. And I believe hold on, I'm going to tell you right now. He missed. So on that particular day, Pork Chop missed one, or got 141 on his first attempt, missed 151 on his second attempt, but then he hit the 151 and they obliterated the 160. So I don't know if it was his set or if he just wasn't in the zone or what, but once he got it, it wasn't like it was a close crush. It was, he really jammed it. So anyway, him and Vinny took first with 160. I came in at third with 146, with which, initially I had goals of the high 160s for this event back when I started training it early on in the probably late spring, early summer. But I just wasn't making any gains on my grippers, and it was just really a struggle.
Well, and Jason, I would like to point out too, I mean, with a 146 with 30 millimeter block, I mean, I know that might be maybe an underperformance or maybe not exactly the goal you were shooting for, but to anybody listening, I mean, that's still right around an average number 3.
Right.
Just so everybody know, I mean, the guys that know, but that is that's nothing, that's no joke. I mean, that's closing a number 3 with a block set. And, like I said, so even if you think it was kind of an off day or the training wasn't going that well, to be able to, close a number 3 any point in time, and let alone with a block set in competition, I still think it's I still think it's a good, I still think it's a good close. So don't be too hard on yourself on that one.
Yeah, right. Well, if nothing else, it's definitely gotten me training it again. So I'm trying to get my grippers going again. After third, we had a 3-way tie. We had Robert Miller with a 129, Anthony Clarino with a 129, which was really interesting because I screwed up because I filled most of the gaps, but then there was a gap from 117 to 129. I didn't have anything in between, and I felt bad because I was like, well, damn, I didn't even think of that, because I was at Gary's the day before, and Gary's got a million grippers, and I was borrowing from him, but I was like, how did I not fill this gap? But I told him, I said, go after that 129. I feel like you can get it. He handled that 117 pretty easily. Yeah. And then he did. He got the 129 and he crushed it. Let's see. Actually, no. I'm looking at so he missed 134. Then he went back down and got the 129 on his fourth and final attempt, which is pretty good. Like if you miss on a gripper like that, and you drop down and make it, that's huge in my opinion, because grippers take a lot out of your
absolutely
your hand. So that was really cool, and it was cool to see Robert doing grippers. He doesn't usually gravitate toward the grippers, so the fact that he picked it was kind of cool. And 129 is nothing to sneeze at when you don't really train it. Hunter Heath, which I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about him today, but he closed a 129 after failing twice. So I think he closed a 117, looks like here. Then he failed twice on 129 because that was my only other gripper, the next gripper. And then we really worked with him on his set. I wanted to get him to where he could set it in the right spot and get some leverage. And whether or not that helped, he was able to close it pretty mightily on that fourth attempt. So 129, and then Cody Ward looks like he ended up with a 102.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, for grippers, like I said, so I think the most popular event out of all these, because you said everybody can kind of pick 3 out of 5. It looks like the biggest numbers were the Euro and the Crusher. So, there's not too many that did grippers, but still, most of the pack putting up pretty solid closes. You know,
Yeah.
I would say,
especially for 30 millimeters. Yeah.
And for a lot of people who haven't really trained grippers or put time in, because I have a 129 that's like a GHP 6. So I mean, most people on here are closing a GHP 6 or higher, and some of those guys include, you know, first timers touching the gripper and people that aren't even training them. So that's those are good numbers. If we move down to the next event, and this is where I guess we'll be talking about Hunter Heath a little bit more, because this was his first actual grip competition. He's kind of been training grip, you know, on his own and kind of working through with what homemade training stuff he has at his, you know, home gym. But this was his first chance to get hands on these implements and actually be in a sanctioned competition. And he won this, the 2-inch V-bar.
Yeah.
So, and it went with a big number and by a large margin. So, do you just want to kind of give your assessment of kind of how the V-bar went, or, you know, maybe obviously Hunter won. We can talk about other people as well, but just kind of how that event went down, and then, you know, how well Hunter did at that lift, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So V-bar was interesting because the V-bar came right after Crusher and right before Euro. So I scratched out of it. I just chose not to do V-bar because I had just done Crusher, and I had put everything I had into my last couple of attempts, and I needed time to just readjust. Everything felt like jello at that point, so I didn't do V-bar. It also, I believe, Pork scratched out of it too. He decided not to do V-bar. But the folks who did it, so we had, it looks like Hunter, Vincent Ferriolo, Anthony Clarino, Vinny Revelis, Claude Wilson, another newcomer. We'll talk more about him, Cody Ward, and Mike Bianchi, and yourself. So that was our V-bar. Everybody early on, this is an event that I think Mike, he came in, he ended up didn't scratch. He ended up with 0 because he started a little bit too high, I think, for himself. Which tends to happen, especially when you're coming into an event that's the 4th event out of 5 and you've already done 3 of the event, you know, and it's like you're kind of, it's easy to overestimate where your strength is or your starting point should be, especially on a V-bar that you're not familiar with. This particular V-bar does not even have that great of texture. It really doesn't. I was struggling with it training for this event, and I was not making much progress. But you know, after him, we had Cody Ward. He ended up with a 158 on the V-bar, and that's a good lift for him. He doesn't train it. So this was just, he wanted to get in the event and get a mark. So he was in there with that. We had Vinny Ferriolo, who, by the way, PR'd in everything at this event, which was really cool. He's been training like a beast, you know, and I think he had just competed. He just competed the week before.
It was at Heavy Hands.
At your event,
So it was funny because Vinny was at our event, and we talked about him in that recap, and Vinny was there taking some polls, and then the very next weekend he turns around and me and him are both competing at the AGP.
He's a machine.
We're there. So Vinny's been getting after it.
He has, and he weighs 160 pounds, and he pulled 173 on the V-bar, which is a pretty stout lift when you think about it. After that, we had Anthony Clarino he ended up with a 203, which was good because he failed it on his 3rd attempt, came in on his 4th attempt to get it. So whenever that happens, I'm always super happy for whoever it is in that particular time.
Oh, and Anthony's kind of a lighter weight body guy too. I wasn't there when he weighed in.
156.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's a lighter body weight guy as well, kind of pulling.
So 203 is a pretty big weight.
Yeah,
you know.
Yep.
And then we had a 2-way tie. We had Vinny Revelis and Claude Wilson at 213.56. Now, Claude is a newcomer, and I know him and James had talked about what he would be starting at as far as his lifts go. And I feel like he could have, after his 4th attempt, he did all 4 attempts easily. So
Yeah.
I don't know what his ceiling is as far as thick bar stuff goes, V-bar and crusher, when we get to that. But 213 for your first time touching the thing, or first time in an event. I mean, that's not bad at all. He was 242, and then there was you. You came in at 239. You failed 250 twice. Do you remember what happened there? Did it slip out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily the greatest V-bar lifter in general when it comes to having your hand kind of, I guess the flexibility in the wrist kind of angling down. Yeah, any V-bar, whether it be like a 2-inch vertical handle, the solid V-bar, little bighorn. The position's a little weird for me sometimes, but the 239 felt solid. I mean, I pulled it up. It felt like a warm-up. And then literally, I guess, that 10 or 11 pound jump up to like the 250 mark. Those friction lifts, it just, when it stops, it stops. And for that day, I mean, I think I had pulled upwards of 250 before in the past and stuff. So I was kind of looking to go a little higher, but it kind of just kept slipping on me. And the more I tried to readjust and texture it, it just wasn't there. So, what can you do? I gave it a couple more attempts and then, ended up putting 239 on the board. So and
239, I mean, 239 is a good lift too. It's no slouch.
And then we end up basically with Hunter, I took second in that event. Hunter would take first, and Hunter just kind of ran up and ran away with this event.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, he did not fail on that event.
He topped out at 285 or just over 285 pounds on that event. And that's his first competition, first time touching the thing, pulled 285. That was a strong lift.
That was a really well, 285 he topped out at, but he didn't have any attempts after that. He didn't fail any of his events or any of his lifts on that. So had he gone up, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember. I'm trying to think back in my head how easy it was for him. I don't want to say it was easy. But I feel like he handled it pretty well.
I think it moved pretty well, but it was also one of those that like I don't know that, not that you have to, because you don't have to like hold it at the top or anything. It just has to meet the height requirement. But I think it was one of those where like you got it up to height, but then it was one of those where you like, you kind of want to write it down fairly quickly because you don't want it slipping out or, getting away from you.
That's right.
But yeah, no, that 285 was monstrous from him. So
great lift.
And then, so like I said, Hunter Heath took that event with 285 pounds and pretty much, almost won by about a 50-pound margin over me on that one. Cause like I said, I missed the 250 and everything.
Well, so you were coming off a crusher.
True. We're kind of, I guess, slightly out of order, but yeah, that is true.
But that, that taxed you too going into it.
But yeah, so we could cover the crusher next. I know, like I said, we kind of, or did you want to go in a different order? I'm just going off of how the sheet laid out. Okay.
This is fine. Yeah, we can go crusher.
So yeah, so then if we go 2.5 inch crusher, like I said, you can kind of give us a rundown of how that went. I can give my thoughts on it too. Whenever you want.
Crusher is like my favorite event these days. I just love the handle, and I've been making some progress on it because my goal lately has been the inch dumbbell. I've not gotten a full lift on it yet, and so I've been really training the crusher. I was disappointed. I really wanted to hit 175 at this event. I ended up at 165 because I took a 10-pound jump. Gotcha. But I lifted 165 easily. In practice, I've gotten 178. But this particular day, it just wasn't. I don't know if you remember it, but I kept slipping out right at the bar. Like it just kept
it was very close.
Yeah. Because I went with 260 or 165 my first attempt. No, hold on a minute.
You opened pretty high, if I remember right.
Yes, 165 was my first attempt. So then I went to 175 for my next three and missed all three.
Gotcha.
But with that event, we had this was the only event I believe where we had all 11 competitors were in this event. So
it looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a popular one.
Yeah, but you definitely stole the show in that one. You took first with 185, missed 190.
Yeah,
but I feel like it was a close miss, if I remember correctly.
It
You got it off the ground.
I moved it, but yeah, it wasn't coming up that day. But and like I said, Hunter Heath, who won the V-bar event, he kind of pushed me up to that limit.
Yeah,
he attempted 190 but missed it. But he had jumped from 180 to 190, and I had kind of picked the jumps maybe a little smarter or taken my attempts a little bit because I basically had the 185 locked in with an extra attempt in the bag, and he basically went from 180 on his third attempt, I believe, and he either had to pull 190 to win the event, and if he didn't pull 190, then I was going to win with 185, and I had an extra pull to kind of play with.
That's right. So you were able to do.
I think that was kind of a little bit of experience. I think just a little more experience than Hunter in picking the attempts and the jumps.
And I think too, like you said, like Hunter, this was his first event. Mm-hmm. He didn't really have an idea where to start, where to go, because he started at 145. I'm laughing because I'm looking at this and I'm like, he started at 145.
Yeah, he opened kind of low for what his strength level would be. But like you said, you don't really know, and you definitely don't want to open too high and zero.
You don't. Well, and two, you don't know the handle. You don't know. There's a lot of variables in there you're just not sure about. For somebody like me, I knew exactly where I could open. It's my handle. I use it. It's like I know the hand. I just know it. And but for him, he started at 145, and then he went to where was he? 165, and then he went to that 180. And all three of those, I feel like he got super easy, which is probably why he jumped to that 190, because he was like, this is now I've got it. Now, had he opened higher and 190 was his third attempt, who knows? Whatever the case may be, he's got some potential to do some crazy things. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, hopefully we'll see him stick with it. And like I said, I think that was one. Yeah. I took the event win on that, but I really think it just came down to more competition experience. I think me and him on that specific handle, for my honest assessment, we both are probably fairly similar strength on that event. I think I just picked a little bit better attempts and a little more experience. It's kind of just what led to that.
Could be. Yeah.
And I think that's what it was.
And for you, I think that was a PR, wasn't it? The 185.
Yeah, I had lifted 182 the year before. And what I was really shooting for was and granted, Tim Butler the year before had done something crazy where he
188.
He did 188, but he tripled it, and it was a PR for him. So he literally took a 188 PR, and he just bang, 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 just pulled it 3 times. Like he obviously landed the first. Yeah, he landed the first lift, and after he landed the first lift, he was kind of joking around, like he worked himself up for this big PR, and he was like, that was kind of easy. And then he pulled it for 2 more reps, and it was like,
I remember that. Yeah.
Tim just did a triple, right?
He does crazy things. He's strong.
Tim's awesome, but that's the number I had in my head because I knew Tim had lifted 188 and beat me last year. He did 188 and I did 182. So I was kind of gunning for that 188 mark that Tim did, even though he wasn't there this year. I was still shooting for what he had beat me with last year. Well,
because it's now, it's the AGP 188's the AGP record from 2022, and you're sitting there at second place. So now that's going to have to be in your crosshairs. Like that's going to be
it could be something I look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I had kind of in my head going into that event. Was I said I want to kind of outlift what I did last year, but I'd like to outlift what Tim did last year, and I came within 3 pounds and what was in the ballpark. Had a shot at 190 and just couldn't do it. So
Pork Chop came in at third with 175. He missed 185 and then he scratched. I think by this point in the competition, he really he was looking for a big number on lever top. I know we'll get to that. It didn't happen. And then getting to the crusher, because Pork Chop can pull some huge weight on the crusher.
Oh, yeah.
But again, I think on this particular one, he may have made too big of a jump too early because I know where his potential is. He probably could have opened with 175, quite honestly. And then he could have played around a little bit with his other attempts. But anyways, 175 is a huge lift on the crusher anyway. He picks up the inch every time he can touch it. So we know that strength is there. I was next with 165. I believe I was next. Yep. Vinny Revelise ended up with a 155, which was a big lift, especially because he's 180. He weighs 180, so that's a big lift for him.
Yeah.
And then everybody else kind of followed suit after that. So,
and then I'm trying to remember because the lever top was in there somewhere first. Like I said, if we go by this list, we have the Euro above lever top. Did you want to cover the lever top? Just
yeah.
We kind of covered that just because moving into the lever top, we have the current world record holder and James Rederitis. He was there refereeing, judging it. It was at his facility is where we hosted it, or where you hosted it. I say we, I was just there competing. But James had like a little injury or something, or just wasn't feeling quite right, and he didn't.
No,
his
elbow's been giving him fits lately, and he tested it out early on, and he was like, "No, it's too tender, and it's not worth it because the lever top is really a lot of torque on your wrist. It pulls you in an awkward position. Yeah. It hurts your elbow.
It's not a lift you want to play around with.
No,
if you have an injury, you don't want to play around with it.
No, because it could really make it affect everything. Like all your other lifts could be garbage after that. So, no, but and I for one was glad because I'm always the one who has to ref that event, and I hate reffing it. So this time he was able to do that. So I was glad for that.
And we had 6 people total that did that event. So, and I would like to say, you guys have kind of like you mentioned in the beginning, a kind of a strong arm wrestling base or a strong arm wrestling culture, with James and everybody's background and stuff like that. So this is one of those lifts that has a little bit more like pronation because the stack sits off to the side. So it's trying to basically torque your arm in a way. So it's not, there's a little bit of grip involved, but it's almost more pronation. And it kind of is a arm wrestling. It kind of suits arm wrestlers well because of that pronation and kind of being able to stay in that position.
Yeah, so that's exactly right.
Yeah. It's a little more of a, I don't want to say an arm wrestler lift, but yeah, you're not really having to worry about your fingers or your thumb or anything holding on too much as that wrist strength.
Right.
But yeah, I had 6 guys do that, and we had 2 lifts over 100 pounds, which is still a great mark for that implement.
So the thing about the lever top, especially with new guys when they come in on it, you have to grip it in such a way that your forearm is parallel to the ground. So your forearm can never get up too high or too low. It has to stay parallel, and then it has to clear the crossbar. And what people tend to do when they're starting out on it and they're not familiar with it is they think they can get a lot of weight on it because they're bending their arm this way and taking it up instead of keeping their arm parallel. And when you show them the right technique and they're doing it parallel, they can't touch the weight. Like the weight doesn't go anywhere. So when you look at these results, or when anybody looking at these results sees Mike Bianchi win the event at 104 pounds, well, think about it like this. 5 years ago, prior to our first AGP, the world record was just over 103 pounds.
Yeah, so the world record. Yeah.
This would have been a world record. Now, James obviously broke the record that year. I think he ended up somewhere, I don't remember. It was like 111 pounds or something the first year that he broke it. So he broke the record by about 7 or 8 pounds. Then,
do you happen to remember what it's at now? The current record for that lift?
It's 121. 121 and change.
Okay, I know it's just a little over 120. Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna be accurate here because I'm gonna tell you exactly.
You're fine. But yeah, so I mean that Mike pulled 104 on it, and like you said, that a few years back before James got to it, that would have been good enough for a world record.
I remember when James started training the event. This was a while ago. This was well before our first event. And the world record at that point was like 90-something pounds. David Horn had the record. David Horn is one of those other just strong all-around guys that's just great at everything. And but I remember James first touching the lever top at Bob's house because Bob had a lot of the horn tops. And that's when he was like, wow, this is something I feel like I could get pretty good at. you know, and of course, the more he trained with, he excelled. The disappointing thing at this particular event was Pork Chop. Pork Chop's prior best was 105. So Pork Chop right now is number 2 in the world in lever top. So you got James, Pork Chop. Now you got Mike in third, and then David Horn right after Mike. So we got 3 pickup artists like right there on the. But again, we hold the event, you know,
yearly.
Not really contested. If you look at the rankings, you won't see anything other than AGP for, you know, years, because it's just not contested anywhere else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, hopefully it is. Again, Cody Ward is a guy who's been really making strides. He got a PR with 101.8, which is huge. It's just huge. I think my first attempt was 70. My first attempt was 72. And then I scratched out because it just hurt. I was like, you know what? It's not worth it to me. My second event to screw my elbow up. I got 83 last year or something, and that's my best. But I was like, no, I'm not gonna kind of force this one. But really, even Hunter Heath coming in at 77 pounds on lever top, first time touching the thing. And it was perfect form. It wasn't like he was cheating it or anything. He was, he's going to be a natural, but 77 pounds, a lot.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah. And then, like I said, that kind of covers that. And then, like, we really have one event left, which would be the one-hand pinch for the Euro.
Yes.
And I mean, is there anything you want to add on this? I have one thing I would like to add, or if you wanted to mention it, was I want to say during this event, Vinny Reveles went to get coffee.
Yes.
In the middle of the event, he chose to go get a coffee for some reason, and even James was telling him, like, "Hey, I got coffee here. Like, just drink the coffee here." And they
needed Starbucks. Yeah, they needed their.
So they got in the car and they took off and they went to get their coffee, and then we're kind of warming up, getting up in numbers, and we start hearing like this yelling out in the parking lot or just loud talking.
Right.
And it's like, what's going on? And Vinny had spilled coffee on himself and burnt his hand.
Yes.
So he burned his hand with coffee that he got. And then at some point, I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to ruin the story, but I don't know if it was his top lift. I think it was his top lift, but he came in with this burnt hand that he had spilled coffee on, and he pulled 83 pounds, or he had pulled something close to one of those attempts. And he had just burned his hand, and he like came in with the burnt hand and like took a bite out of a sandwich at some point while he was doing the lift.
He had a sandwich.
Am I remembering that right?
You are. Like, he did. He had a sandwich.
But it was like one of the funniest moments of the competition, because we're like, okay, did he just burn himself with coffee and come in and take the attempt? And then like he had a sandwich in his other hand while he was lifting. It was like
he did.
It was like,
surreal.
It was pretty hilarious.
Were we watching it? Because again, you're right. Like I just remember hearing all this hooting and hollering, and I was like, "What the hell are you guys doing out there?" And he's doing like this because I spilled my coffee or da da da. He spilled his whole point of going anywhere was to get a cup of coffee. He spilled the whole thing when he got back. He burned his hand, which was a pretty significant burn, I remember. And I was like, how's this going to end up? But yeah, he did. He came up there with a sandwich in his hand. And he got the lift. It was 83 pounds. He got the lift.
Yeah.
And then I think on his next attempt, he missed 90. And then he scratched at the end there, which honestly, being through a traumatic event that he was, that's not a bad day.
83 pounds on a pinch lift is pretty solid no matter what device you're on. I mean, you start talking pinching and friction lifts and stuff. I mean, 83 pounds is a good lift.
Well, and honestly, that particular Euro didn't feel that good. Like the texture wasn't good. That's why your number really impressed me, because you know how those Euros, this one doesn't have the seasoning that I wish it did, like where it's like gritty or, it's really, it doesn't, I guess, I don't know. It just hasn't gotten to that point. I don't know why. I've had it for years, but the more I chalk it and everything else, it just doesn't feel good. So when we look at these numbers, I'm like, man, the numbers weren't bad overall. Vinny and myself ended up with 83. Hunter Heath was at 80 again, first time lifter there. Claude was at 71. He failed at 75. But you with 100.1, that was a huge lift. Robert Miller ended up with a 95. He missed 100.1.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he tore his webbing on that 95. So when he came in at that 100.1 and he got it off the ground and he couldn't clear it, I know that really got him. It pissed him off.
Oh man, and I have to give a shout out to Robert. Now, if anybody's not familiar with Robert, I forget what his tag name is, like on Instagram. It has something to do with the Hammerman or being something about, because he loves levering the hammers and stuff like that. So Robert is good at levering hammers and things of that nature.
Yes.
Robert has competed in a ton of different strength sports and everything else. But I want to give a shout out to Robert specifically because, like I said, he pushed me up to 100 pounds on this event. I mean, I had to lift 100 pounds on the Euro to beat him because he lifted 95 and he had a shot at 100. So Robert is one of those guys that whenever he's at an event that I'm at, he's always really fun to lift with because we've always pushed each other back and forth. And he's just really strong. And as you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, he's very well-rounded. So Robert is going to hang tough on almost any and every event. And like I said, and if you go back and look at a lot of these different GSI lifts, if you look, you go down the list a little ways and you look around, you'll see Robert's name kind of scattered throughout all these different lifts and stuff. He's been around, he's been doing it for a while, and he's also done a lot of good steel bending. And if anybody hasn't seen Robert Miller bend steel or do some of these lifts like I'm talking about, I think he was on an episode of Beyond the Bend. So the bending podcast, Beyond the Bend.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Robert Miller was featured on there, so he was talking about more steel bending than he was grip in that episode. But from steel bending to good lifts, Robert is a guy that's just somebody that I respect and somebody that's always showed up and pulled really good numbers. So this time I was fortunate enough to kind of get that 5-pound edge and, kind of pick the jumps a little bit, and it paid off. Had I missed that 100 pounds, I would have had to, I probably would have been in trouble, and it would have been Robert's win. So that was a little bit of a gamble on my part. The one thing I will add with me hitting the 100 pounds that threw me off was, I did it with my weaker hand for that width of pinch. Usually my left hand does better on a wide pinch, and my right hand is kind of my go-to. I don't know if it was competing the weekend before, or if it was just the crusher and other implements leading up to that point. But I was like pulling with my left hand, kind of back and forth with my right. And I was thinking, well, if I can lift it with my left, or if I even halfway break it off the ground with my left, my right's going to launch it, because for plate pinching or anything that's a little more narrower, my right hand is usually just a little bit stronger. And I went to pull on that 100 pounds with my right hand thinking it was going to be a give me, and it didn't move. And I was like,
wow. No, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're in trouble now, because it didn't move like I thought it would. And then I switched right back to the left, and the left just nailed the lift. And I was like,
that's funny.
It's weird like that sometimes. So it happened that way. But yeah, my strong hand kind of failed me. But like I said, Robert pushed me to the limit on that one. And I want to bring up one last thing on that is I hit 100 pounds, which put me like right behind Andrew Derniat and these are old lists we're talking about. Like this is Andrew in 2012 or something, whatever.
But it's still Andrew.
So when you guys checked the list for the Euro in the moment, because I still had 2 attempts left after my 100. So even if I had missed 100, I still could have rechalked and had 2 times to come back and maybe still get it. So I had some wiggle room, I guess you could say, but I made the jump to 105 after that for my next 2 attempts. And man, we were kind of talking about the list, like where would that put me? And for what it's worth, in the 105 kg class, if I did 105, that would have jumped Jed Johnson, Adam Glass, and Andrew Derniat. So I was like, man, I got to pull this 105. I got to do it. Wow. And I had 2 shots at it, and I missed both. I don't know if I even just slid it across the floor. It didn't really come up. There was no good air. But yeah, so I have no problem being a little bit behind those guys on the list. But that was kind of
that's pretty good company.
That was kind of my motivation to hit that 105 in the moment when I was looking at it. I was like, man, if I can kind of, pass these guys up or what they did before, that would be kind of a cool benchmark. And like I said, I'm right behind that. Just couldn't do it on that day. So that kind of wraps up the Euro on that. And I would like to go into, like I said, with the event kind of being wrapped up with those things, Like I said, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this portion, Jason, because you guys score it by the three, your three placings. So technically for the Crusher, I took a first. For the Euro, I took a first, and then I took second to Hunter on V-bar. So that gave me the overall win technically.
Right.
But I'm not too concerned with that, with the way this is split up and everything. So I don't want to like talk about myself. But that did give me the event win. What I would like to move on to, though, or not the event win, but the overall win, whatever. But what I would like to talk about is kind of your guys, the prizes that you had for everybody, and kind of like, I guess, like the sponsors or just the stuff that you handed out, because you have these really cool, like custom, if anybody's familiar with like regular, like wooden plaques and stuff, you guys have somebody that like wood burns, like how you can wood burn and draw and do stuff like that, like art, with wood. And they draw out who does the trophies for that, by the way, just for a shout out.
So one of my friends, his father, Jeff Harbin, his name is, he wood burn, like it's a hobby of his, he's retired. So he just does some wood burning. And it's funny with the awards. I'm glad you brought that up, because when we first started this back in 2018 and 19, we would get a lot of giveaways. People would, like Jed would send us DVDs, and we'd get shirts, and we would get Josh Hensey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he would weld us. He makes all kinds of cool grip tools, and so we would get all these things, and we would do like a lot of grip competitions will do giveaways with the whatever the implements are that they're giving away. So we did that for a few years, and then I was like, and then Used Gym Store is where we used to hold the event every year, and they always sponsor us. So they always give us first, second, and third place, even though we don't technically place first, second. I mean, we didn't start out doing that. They actually started providing us the gift cards for that, and then an overall, which is great. And they've done it ever since. So we have a really good partnership with Used Gym Store. And then the wood burning. So he it was a hobby of his. And so one day I just floated it to him. I said, hey, would you be interested in just, burning some awards for us? And it would just be for the champion, because I think it's kind of neat to have a date, like an event with like a plaque, basically, that you can have up, and it's cool, and it looks cool in a gym and whatever else, and it's meaningful, I think, and it's meaningful for several ways. It's personal, you got somebody who you like and trust, who created it for you with their hands, and then you win it, and when you win something like that, I feel like it's more meaningful too.
And I would add to that like, people like medals and people like trophies, or they like plaques, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, it's not so much about the trophy or the plaque or whatever it may be, as much as it is like you said, you kind of look at that date, or you look at that thing, and you almost go back in time and kind of relive the moment, or think about the competition. You think about that day, you think about the lifts, and it's more about the people.
That's right.
Is how I kind of feel about it. So.
And that's exact. And I'm glad. Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because that's really the purpose behind our event. I think I told you, I am not a proponent of charging for our event. In fact, for 3 years, we didn't charge anything for it, or it might've been 4 years. We started, I decided, okay, we'll do $10, because $10 from every competitor will be enough to give a nice gift to the people who've helped us out. I'm not making money. I don't like you. I just want to go and have a good time and have a couple of laughs and maybe some PRs. But mostly I want to see other people succeed, and I want to, have a memorable experience. And I can say that we've had every event we've had, I've had something huge and memorable that I can remember. A few years back, you wouldn't have been at it, because you were at last year was your first one. But a few years ago, I went to cert on the Red Nail, and we do certs at the beginning of at the time I was crushing reds. My goal was to do 3 reds in less than 45 seconds, because that's what I was doing. I was melting them. And so the day of the competition, and unfortunately, this is why this particular one is etched in my mind, because everybody was around and I couldn't budge the thing. Couldn't budge.
Really?
And I don't know if it's because it was my nerves, because I mean, I've done these bends like in my sleep. Couldn't budge it. And I just drained everything out of my body, and I couldn't bend the damn things. But unfortunately, I never got the cert, and because I wanted to get all three. I wasn't going to do it unless I got all three. I probably could have got certed 2 years before that, just doing one nail, but I wanted to do all three. And then they changed the rules after that, so now it's not, I'm not really going for it anymore. But each one is memorable for its own reason. That one was not a very good reason, but these last few have been really good. We've had such good competition and good strength, strong guys coming out, and hopefully we continue to get more interest at the event.
And with that being said, kind of hosting these events, we were recapping AGP 5. But there's other events that like you or James or somebody else will host. I mean, you guys have even had like steel bending competitions specifically, right? Where it's
you know what? Yeah, in fact, you didn't come out to that, did you? In April, or what year? What month was it? It was like April or May.
I never came out for a bending thing.
Okay, Gary,
yeah,
James hosted this bending event at his place. And I want to say it was in the spring. It was like April or May. It was called the North Carolina State Bending, Breaking, and Tearing Competition, where you had to bend steel. You had you had steel bars, like mid-range bars, long bars, short bars, and then you had to break chains from a board, and then you had to tear cards. However many cards you could. I mean, it was taxing on your hands. But what a cool event. And I don't know if he'll hold it again. It wasn't this year. It was it? I don't know. I can't remember. At any rate,
that's all right, man.
At any rate, it was pretty awesome. But what's coming up?
That's what I was going to say is, James has a competition coming up, and it's in that same area. So,
so James is holding an event coming up here in November 4th, called Hands of Stone. And if anybody is a follower of James on his Instagram page, it's called Hands of Stone. He's Professor Crowbar. That's his handle. But the events are going to be double overhand axle, V-bar, and then a farmer's hold, which is going to be a really cool event.
And that's for time on the farmer's hold? Is a certain weight for time?
It is. Yeah, it's for time.
Okay.
It's for time. I believe it's for time and weight. So you're going to be going up in increment, and it's going to be one of those. I think what he said was it's going to be kind of similar to like what you would do on a silver bullet.
Yeah.
The heavier the weight, so that should be.
Yeah. The bigger weight will trump any time at a smaller weight. But if you end up at the same weight, then the longer time prevails.
But there's a caveat to it, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but I want to say it has to be a 50-pound jump.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and relook at it, but I do know the axle is going to draw some strong people in, because the axle always draws strong people, and we had Jake Fuller out. Do you know Jake Fuller?
I know of him. I don't think I've ever actually met him in person, but he's a strong guy.
Yeah, we actually had an event, our AGP a few years ago. We had the two-hand axle, and we had the Rolling Thunder too. And in that particular event, the Tom McClure. You know Tom McClure?
Yeah, I know Tom. Yep.
So Tom pulled 430 on it, and then Jake was over 400 pounds too on the axle, which is just insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
those are big pulls.
Those are heavy weights. So, and Tom was supposed to come out to this event. I wish he had, because he's super strong, and he pulled 279 on the V-bar a couple years ago when we held it. So, if he comes to this event, I know his numbers will be big. I'm sure Heath will pull big numbers, because he loves the axle and thick bar stuff. So, but again, Hands of Stone on November 4th, and it'll be at Empower House in Cornelius. But I've also went ahead and posted it on the grip board, and I'm going to start a Facebook group, I believe, for it as well. So
okay, so
it'd be
yeah,
really cool.
if anybody needs to get in contact with Jason or check this event out on the grip board, you can look under the contest tabs on the grip board. I know that might be a little old school for some people, and not everybody checks that out. Like he mentioned, James Rederitas is hosting the competition, and that's at Professor Crowbar on Instagram. Most people will know James for the big curls, like we said, lever top whirl.
Right.
So James has been kind of a staple in the grip community. People know him. So yeah, that's going to be hosted in Cornelius, North Carolina. And if anybody, hears this and is remotely close or wants to make that trip, there is a axle deadlift, the V-bar, and a timed hold that goes up in weight to some, whatever capacity for a farmer's hold. So,
and if I get a hold of that link, I'll post it in the comments once this video is up. I'll post the link in the comments.
Jason, that's a good idea.
Yeah, the actual farmer's handles are thick too. They're not thick like 2 inches, but they're like over they're inch and change. So they're
gotcha.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun. Did you grab hold of them when you were there the other day?
I didn't. I didn't even see them. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I think they were off to the side, but they're beastly. Yeah.
But yeah, so no, that sounds like it should be a pretty fun event for anybody that wants to check it out. And like I said, when we do these recaps, not only do I want to recap what's been done at a competition, give the lifters credit, give the lifters coverage. I want to kind of put out future competitions and stuff like that, so that people, hey, there's no competitions around me. I don't know where to go. And it's like, maybe by some chance, this will start becoming a little bit of a resource for people to, get contest results or find out where new competitions are going to be popping up at. But there's numerous other places as well. So this isn't the only place. Just trying to help out a little bit where we can.
Absolutely.
So Jason, man, that pretty much wraps it up. I thank you for taking the time, and
that was just fun.
Like I said, just giving a good recap, giving credit to the lifters, and like I said, I'm sure I'll be seeing you at other competitions and stuff like that. We're in the same state. I'm a little bit of a drive, but nothing too bad. So I'll be back out that way again. And just like I said, thanks for doing the show, doing the rundown with me, and
man,
kind of putting the athletes first and just creating competitions and just running a professional competition and creating competitions that people want to travel to and people want to be at. So
and thanks for having this show, because it really is it's great to listen to, the different perspectives. You had Jed on last week, and that was just really cool to hear him talk about past events and a lot of folks that I'm familiar with and that I've met. And then prior to that, you had Adam Glass, which was just an awesome perspective. 2 very different shows, but both were riveting. Both are really strong guys. Adam Glass, actually, his videos are the ones that got me tearing cards. He's got really good technical advice on those. So anyways, your show is great, and I look forward to it every week.
Well, man, thanks for that. And like I said, I plan on keeping them rolling out. So I'm gonna try to keep up the best I can and keep covering stuff. And like I said, kind of keeping the interviews, adding stuff in. I don't want it to be the same old same. Like you said, different interviews, different people. Got some different stuff in the works I'm kind of working on for it. But the recaps and the interviews are going to stay in the mix, and plan on adding a few other aspects here and there with some different episodes and maybe, branching out a little bit. But other than that, the show is going to be consistent. I have no intentions of stopping it or it fading off or anything. And I think with the way that it's set up, it should be able to continue and probably not get too boring. Hopefully not. But yeah, especially for people that like grip, I understand if someone's not into grip and you don't like it. Well, okay, don't watch it. But if you're into grip, there's probably something to be picked up from a lot of these people that we're talking to or talking about. And if you're at competitions, it's nice to hear someone discuss your lifts or break down your performance, because that hasn't happened a whole lot in the past. So that's kind of how I guess I'll end with it. But thanks for not only doing this show, but watching the others and kind of putting that out there and stuff like that, man. So Jason, like I said, with that, I'll let you go, and I'll see you sometime whenever we lift again or whenever we do another competition.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll see you, man.
Take care, man.